I accompanied my wife to a friend's party. Unexpectedly, her male best friend got drunk and started acting crazy. He pulled her into his arms and confessed with deep affection. He said, "If we hadn't broken up back then, our kid could probably go out and buy groceries for us now, right?" Then, suddenly realizing I was there, he clicked his tongue and said, "Oh, damn, I totally forgot the brother-in-law is here too. Brother-in-law, you wouldn't happen to not know that Willow and I used to date, right?" He said it in a joking tone. "Willow, hiding this from him. Could it be that you still want to rekindle things with me?" But the next second, click. I raised my phone and snapped a picture of the two of them. I said, "Don't mind me. Go on. I'm just recording this beautiful moment of life." Chapter 1. Darling, he's drunk. Don't listen to his nonsense. He just got divorced and isn't in a good mood. Willow pushed him away, explaining nervously. My hand froze around the glass. On the rotating glass plate of the dining table, the grease had cooled into sticky patches. Makoto, his eyes hazy with alcohol, pulled Willow back into his arm. He pinched her shoulder, burping and laughing as he said, "What nonsense. If we hadn't broken up back then, our kid would probably be old enough to run errands by now." He added, "Anyway, what's there to be sad about after a divorce? To be honest, it was my decision to walk away with nothing. I didn't do it for money, just to have a clear conscience. As the saying goes, money lost can always be earned again. I'm the kind of man who can take it or leave it, unlike those petty, narrow-minded guys. Those men are the most pathetic." Makoto tilted his head slightly and gave me a sidelong glance. The look in his eyes rubbed me the wrong way. Just then, my son David sent a message asking when his mom and I would be home. I frowned, showing the chat to Willow, signaling that it was time to go. But Makoto snatched my phone away. With an annoyed tone, he said, "Willow, what's wrong with your husband? Doesn't he know how to behave? When we're out having fun, just relax. It's still early, why's he rushing you home already?" Then he muttered, "Guys like him, all full of macho control issues, always have to boss their women around." He lowered his voice on the last sentence. But I still caught every word. The next second, I grabbed his wrist and yanked my phone back, saying each word clearly. "What's wrong with being a man? Aren't you one?" Willow heard the threat in my tone and immediately pulled on my arm, trying to calm me. "Darling, don't argue with a drunk. He's always like this. When we hang out, we never even treat him like the opposite sex." I couldn't help but laugh. I pushed Willow's hand away and said, "Willow, think before you speak. You're almost 30, not 3. If you all don't treat him like the opposite sex, then why did he get married and have kids? And you, why did you date him? Don't play dumb." Willow was momentarily speechless. Her face stiffened with embarrassment. She pursed her lips and tried to explain to the others softly, saying I might just be in a bad mood today. But I cut her off without mercy. "I'm not divorced, and I didn't walk away with nothing. Why the hell would I be in a bad mood?" The room instantly went silent. I didn't want to stay there watching them act out their drama. I got up, ready to go home to my son. But in the next second, Makoto pressed down on my shoulder. He stood up, swaying, the stench of alcohol thick in the air. "Brother-in-law, don't be mad," he slurred. "Yeah, I did date Willow before, but that's all in the past. I ran my mouth today. I thought whoever ended up with Willow would be like me, open-minded and easygoing, able to take a joke. But don't worry, brother-in-law. Willow and I grew up together. We used to run around naked and even slept side by side as kids. When we dated, we were just immature. Once we realized there was no spark, we broke it off right away. So even if Willow stood naked in front of me now, I wouldn't feel a thing." Makoto's left hand rested on my shoulder like we were old friends, while his right arm hooked around Willow's. The stench of liquor surrounded us. A wave of nausea rose in my stomach. I swung my arm, shoving him away. 2 cups of cold tea later, the sickness finally eased. By the time I came to my senses, Makoto was already on the floor. Willow bent down to help him up, her voice filled with irritation. "George," Makoto was trying to explain nicely. "You could have just ignored him, but did you have to hit him? That's so disrespectful." Apologize to Makoto. Chapter 2. Makoto clicked his tongue and got up from the floor. He said, "Willow, your husband is way too petty. Who doesn't have an ex? Can't even mention it. Unbelievable." The voices around us rose one after another, buzzing like a swarm of flies. A girl chimed in. "See, the less capable a man is, the worse his temper gets." Someone else added, "George, don't take Makoto's words seriously. He's just got a filthy mouth but no bad intentions." Yeah, if he can joke about it so openly, it means he really doesn't have feelings for Willow anymore. Then someone, pretending to sound proper, said, "Times have changed. Willow's a married woman now. Not every joke is appropriate anymore." After being scolded by her friends, Willow's expression grew strained, barely holding together. She urged me to apologize quickly. "George, Don't ruin everyone's good time just because of you. Makoto's the host tonight, it's his treat. So what if he joked a bit? No one begged you to come. She tugged lightly at my sleeve and whispered in my ear. Enough. Darling, let's talk at home later. There are so many people here. My girlfriends never liked you to begin with. They didn't approve of me marrying you. You're just giving them another reason to hate you now. I turned to look at Willow, just about to speak, but was interrupted. Makoto had already stood up and, without hesitation, took Willow's hand in his. Their fingers interlocked. Willow didn't seem to think there was anything wrong with it. She laughed and teased him, whispering back and forth like a couple in a TV drama. All flirty smiles and playful banter. Makoto grinned and teased. Now that's more like it. Willow, when you get home, you should punish your husband, make him kneel on durians or something. You can't spoil men, or they'll just get worse. Willow's face flushed pink. She tried to pull her hand away, scolding softly. Let go already. She gave him a light push, but Makoto frowned. You're pushing me. Willow, he said hoarsely. Weren't you the one who said that as long as I never let go, you'd hold my hand through everything? I was speechless. Willow's eyes suddenly turned misty, as if something had just come flooding back to her mind. The hand she was about to push him away with instead tightened. Holding his hand firmly again, she looked at me apologetically and said, Darling, he's drunk, and he just got divorced. He's not in a good place emotionally. I couldn't bring myself to push him away. Makoto smiled indulgently, as if amused. Do you really need to explain that? Willow, since when did marriage turn you into such a love-struck fool? Let me check just how soft your ears have gotten. He reached out and pinched Willow's earlobe. Her cheeks immediately flushed red, and her eyes rippled like water. Then, click. I raised my phone and snapped a photo of them, shattering their sweet little moment. Don't mind me, I said coldly. You two go on. I'm just recording this beautiful moment. I sneered and looked at Willow. No wonder he's so proud of walking away from his divorce empty-handed. It's all an act, isn't it? Playing the nobleman who gives up everything for love. Turns out he's not just stupid, he's scummy too. And you, look at yourself. Even if you're not a mistress yet, you've clearly been dying to be one. The guy just got divorced, and you're already drooling for your turn. Pathetic. Fine then, let's hurry up and file for our divorce too. With that, I turned and walked away. Only then did Willow realize how far she'd crossed the line. She instantly let go of Makoto's hand and ran after me out of the private room. But before she could take a few steps, someone rushed out from inside. Willow, do you have any stomach medicine? Makoto's old problem is acting up again. Willow's footsteps halted, then her anxious voice followed. Yes, I brought some. I stopped and turned back. She had already gone back into the room with that person. By the time I stepped out of the elevator, a message from Willow popped up on my phone. Darling, you're the only one who didn't drink tonight. Could you drive Makoto to the hospital? Chapter 3. I didn't respond. Willow called me right away. George, this is a human life we're talking about. Could you have a little compassion? There are things more urgent than others. Take Makoto to the hospital first. We'll talk about the rest at home. From the receiver came more voices, women this time. Yes, it's a matter of life and death. If there's any misunderstanding, you can clear it up later. Look at Makoto's face. He's pale. What if it's acute gastroenteritis? Another woman added sarcastically. I told you, you were blind when you married that man. I ignored their attempt at moral manipulation and hung up immediately, but Willow ran downstairs. When I started the car, someone opened the door from outside. Willow was panting, the redness on her ears still marked from a recent pinch. She frowned and said, Makoto is in terrible pain. Please, leave the car. We already called for a replacement driver. He'll be here soon. I looked at her with a cold smile. What did you just say? I asked. Darling, I'm not joking, she said as she got into the car and tried to unbuckle my seatbelt. I spoke without emotion. Willow, all these years, you've always carried stomach medicine with you. Was it for Makoto? Her hands froze for a moment. She denied it instinctively. Of course not. The dim light in the car couldn't hide the flicker of guilt in her eyes. I let out a short laugh, then suddenly raised my voice. Get out. Don't make me lay a hand on you. In the distance, I saw several people coming out of the hotel lobby, helping Makoto along. Willow, are you ready yet? Makoto can't stand it anymore, someone shouted. Willow replied, coming, but her tone turned sharp. Losing her patience, she began pushing me harder. Seeing how anxious she was for that man, something inside me went cold. A second later, smack. The sound of a slap echoed inside the car. Willow's head snapped to the side. She stared at me in disbelief. I took my phone and opened the chat with David. The silence in the car was broken by a small, trembling voice, full of sobs. Daddy, when are you and Mommy coming back? Auntie's leaving already, and I'm scared to stay alone, boo-hoo. When the recording ended, I turned off the phone screen. I looked up at Willow, my eyes cold. You decide. I said in an icy tone. Are you going to take care of your first love, or your son? She pressed her lips together, replying with barely contained anger. What kind of attitude is that, George? What first love nonsense? I see now, you just don't trust me. Makoto and I are just friends. And besides, he's sick. I rubbed my forehead, too tired to argue in public. As a man, I knew exactly what Makoto was after tonight. That was why I'd held back at the restaurant. But now, I couldn't anymore. The night breeze was cold, so cold it froze the heart as well. I glanced at Willow from the corner of my eye, feeling my anger boil inside though my face remained calm. I nodded slowly, opened the door, and stepped out of the car. Her expression softened, thinking I'd given in. Then, suddenly, I yanked open the passenger door, grabbed her arm, and dragged her out, making her fall to the ground. Looking down at her with ice in my eyes, I said each word clearly. It's none of your fucking business. I got back in the car, tore her hands away from the window frame, and slammed the door shut. I locked it, pressed the accelerator. The car disappeared into the night traffic. In the rearview mirror, I saw Willow walking toward Makoto, who was waiting for her in front of the hotel. I shook my head and let out a bitter smile. Chapter 4. Until tonight, I had always believed that Willow and I were each other's first love. That's what she had always told me. I'm not a traditional or old-fashioned man. I can accept that Willow had a past, but what I can't accept is that she lied to me. And even worse, she kept her first love around as her intimate best friend. Tonight, I gave her a choice. It wasn't between me and Makoto. It was between Makoto and our son. And she chose Makoto. Seeing someone's true nature, it turns out, is really that simple. All it takes is one question with two answers. Chapter 5. When I got home, the nanny hadn't left yet. She was keeping David company, counting the little cherry tomatoes on the balcony. As soon as he heard the door open, David ran toward me and threw himself into my arms, giving me a big hug. The complicated emotions I'd been carrying before stepping inside were, for a moment, softened by my child's embrace. David looked at the empty doorway and tilted his head. Where's Mom? I picked him up and said with a smile, Mom has something to do. She'll be back later tonight. David looked a little disappointed. He said, then can Mom still go with me to the flea market tomorrow to sell the tomatoes? I didn't want to break his heart, didn't want to turn his joy into disappointment. Although my philosophy for raising David had always been no lies, no secrets, even though he's still a child, I've always given him the right to participate in family decisions, treating him as a complete individual. But now, I didn't know how to tell him what had happened tonight, so I tried to brush it off vaguely. I smiled and said, wouldn't it be nice if Daddy goes with you instead? David seemed to sense something. His eyes instantly reddened. He said, but the other kids always go with both their moms and dads. I want that too. Seeing him struggling not to cry, I couldn't bear it. I said, all right, we'll go together. Hearing that, David wrapped his arms around my neck and cheered softly into my ear. Yay. After telling David a bedtime story, the nanny started packing up to leave. Before going, she looked at me with concern. George, did you and Willow have a fight? I smiled and shook my head. Just a small thing. It's late already. I'll walk you downstairs. As we went down, the nanny kept comforting me. She said couples arguing was normal, that we should just sit down and talk things through. She added, George, don't be fooled by my age. I'm quite trendy, you know. I've been reading these romance novels lately. Every misunderstanding between the leads comes from pride and poor communication. Let's not be the foolish ones who don't talk things out. Okay. I smiled and nodded. Yeah, I know. I ordered a car for her. Just before getting in, she turned around as if remembering something. George, by the way, when I picked David up from kindergarten today, it seemed like some classmates were picking on him. She said there's a new kid who keeps trying to take his stuff. You should check with David's teacher later. All right, don't let him get bullied. Chapter 6. After saying goodbye to the nanny, I sent a message to David's teacher to ask what had happened. She replied very quickly. The teacher said it was probably just a small fight between kids, and that on Monday, when they returned to class, she would help mediate between them. So she told me not to worry. I replied, all right, thank you very much for your help. Then we chatted a little more about David's behavior in kindergarten. The teacher praised him, saying he was an obedient and sensible child. In the end, she said she wanted to ask me for a small favor. David's father, you're on the parent committee of Star Garden, right? As you know, teachers aren't allowed to join the committee. The father of the new student hasn't been added to the group yet. Why don't I send you his contact so you can add him? I replied, no problem. Soon she sent me a contact card. I opened it to add him as a friend. But the profile picture of that father caught my attention. It was a flower pot with a small ornamental bamboo. Nothing special, but that plant was exactly the same as the one I have on my balcony. An inexplicable sense of unease ran through me. I frowned and typed, Teacher, as far as I know, admissions to the kindergarten are quite strict. Children who transfer midterm must do so through a recommendation, correct? She replied, yes, that's right. It's a safety measure for the children. Is there something wrong, David's father? I asked. Could you tell me who recommended the new student? After sending the message, I noticed my hand was trembling uncontrollably. My heartbeat quickened. I turned off the screen and looked toward the green bamboo pot on the balcony. It was the plant Willow had cared for years. Longer even than the time we'd known each other. A few seconds later, the screen lit up again. The message read, Little Kaito was recommended by David's mother. Didn't you know that? Chapter 7. The next morning, I was awakened by the sound of the doorbell. Last night, I had sent a message to Willow to remind her not to forget to take David to sell cherry tomatoes the next day, although I had already decided to end things with her for good. She was still the mother of my child, and I didn't want my emotions to affect the mother and son activity, nor did I want David to feel the consequences of our issues. That night, Willow had acted as if she were angry. When she came back, she started noisily gathering her clothes, packing suitcases. And when she saw I didn't respond, she ended up sleeping in the guest room. The doorbell rang several times and no one went to open it. Then I remembered it was the weekend, family day, and the nanny had the day off. I decided to go open it myself. As soon as I opened the door of my room, I heard the front door in the living room open, followed by a child's excited voice, Mom. I frowned and headed toward the living room. I saw Willow hugging a small boy. While she asked the person at the door, Why have you come? From outside came a man's voice in reply, Of course, to thank you for last night. Besides, Kaito wouldn't stop talking about you. So we thought we'd come for a visit. The man smiled, jokingly. What's wrong? Aren't we welcome? Willow shook her head and replied, Of course you are. Please, come in. She stepped aside. And then I saw him, Makoto, standing at the door. Chapter 8. When Makoto walked in, he saw the suitcases Willow had packed in the living room. He looked puzzled and asked, What's going on here? Are you planning to run away from home? Willow lowered her eyes and said in a hurt tone, I was planning to stay at my family's house for a few days. Makoto immediately frowned, his voice filled with righteous indignation. So is this your idea, or did he kick you out? When Willow pressed her lips together and stayed silent, he continued, Oh, so he did kick you out, huh? What a bastard. You came all this way to marry him, and now he's throwing you out. He's taking advantage of the fact that you have nowhere else to go, no family to back you up. He added heatedly, Good thing there's nothing improper between us. If it were some other men with bad intentions, he might have already tried to take advantage of you. Then he said, If he threatens you again, just tell me. I'll stand up for you. And he went on, Your husband's way too controlling. Even after marriage, a person needs to be generous. You know, in life, you can't avoid interacting with the opposite sex, right? Willow kept her lips tightly pressed together. I couldn't see her face clearly, but the way she gradually straightened her back told me everything. She was listening to him. A cold laugh escaped my mouth as I stepped out from around the corner. I said, Yes, one should learn to be generous. Not only should I learn to be generous, but my son should, too. Otherwise, if he finds out his mother is eagerly trying to be someone else's mom, who knows what kind of scene he'll make. Willow's expression froze. Her arms, which were holding Kaito, stiffened suddenly. She almost dropped the child. Turning her head, she forced a strained smile and said, Honey, could you please not talk like that in front of the kids? I asked evenly, How am I talking? Exactly. Am I not being generous enough? Your first love son came over and started calling you mom, and I didn't even say anything, did I? Willow opened her mouth as if to say something, but I cut her off. My tone stayed calm throughout. I said, You're right, though. After all, Makoto's finally divorced, and Kaito doesn't have a mother anymore. One of them needs a wife, the other needs a mom, and you just happen to be eager to help. It's mutual, isn't it? Perfect match. We'd better hurry and finish the paperwork, so you can officially take your new position. I was already being as restrained as I could be in front of the children. The fact that I hadn't cursed yet, that was already my limit. Chapter 9. Makoto's expression instantly darkened. He pulled the child back, telling him to go play somewhere else. Once Kaito walked away, Makoto glared at me and said slowly, enunciating each word, George, you're a father yourself. How can you say things like that in front of a child? Then he turned to Willow and said, Willow, how can your husband be so shameless? The kid's so young, what does he even understand? It's just a form of address. Does he really need to make such a big deal out of it? Willow seemed to agree with him. When she looked at me again, her eyes held a trace of disapproval. She said, George, apologize to Makoto and Kaito. What you said just now really went too far. Hearing Willow's words, a faint look of satisfaction appeared on Makoto's face. Just as I was about to speak, Makoto shook his head and called Kaito back from the balcony. He said, "Kaito, didn't Daddy tell you that you can't call your godmother Mom? You can call her Aunt Lou or godmother, but never call her Mom directly." Kaito protested. "But Auntie wants to be my mom, and I like having Auntie as my mom." When Makoto heard him say that Willow was willing to be his mother, the joy on his face was impossible to hide, but outwardly, he still pretended to scold the boy sternly. "What's wrong with you? Are you not listening when Daddy talks to you anymore?" His tone rose sharply. Kaito's eyes immediately filled with tears, his lips quivering as he tried not to cry. Seeing this, Willow quickly pulled him into her arms. Hugging and comforting him tenderly, she said, all right, Kaito, don't cry. It's just a name. You can call me however you like, okay?" Then she turned to look at me and said, "George, let's stop this here. Arguing with a child, how undignified is that?" Kaito wrapped his arms around Willow's neck, grinning from ear to ear. He even planted several loud kisses on her cheek, cheering happily. "Yay, Auntie is the best. I love Mommy the most." Then he turned toward me, scrunching his face and sticking out his tongue. He said, "You're a bad uncle. I don't like you." I replied calmly, "That's normal. I don't like you either. After all, your own mother didn't want you." The next second, Kaito burst into tears. I simply smiled, turned around, and walked toward the children's room. David was still inside. I didn't want him to come out and see his mother holding the classmate he disliked, but as I turned, I found myself staring straight into the eyes of my son, standing at the door of the children's room, clutching his Ultraman toy. David blinked his big eyes and asked in confusion, "Dad, why is he calling my mom, too?" Chapter 10. The moment Willow saw David, she quickly set Kaito down. Makoto's expression turned slightly displeased, but he had no grounds to say anything. He simply took Kaito by the hand and led him to the balcony. Willow walked toward David. She bent down, wanting to hug him, but David took a small step back, hiding behind me. He said softly, "Mom, I don't like him. He always bullies me at school. Can you make him go away?" David was a gentle child. Normally, he would never say something like that, but Willow frowned and said, "David, how can you lie like that?" The bruise on Kaito's face, "He told me it was you who scratched him. He said you're the one who bullies him at school." At that moment, anger surged through me. I snapped, "Willow, what do you mean by that? David is lying. You didn't even ask him what happened, and you've already decided it's his fault. Whose mother are you, exactly? Have you even been to the school? Do you know how that kid isolates David? He's only in kindergarten, and he's already forming cliques, not even a month since enrolling, and he's been urging classmates not to play with David. If he hadn't stolen David's toy, would David have fought him?" It was the first time I had ever lost my temper at Willow in front of our child. David hid behind me, tugging gently on my shirt. In a small, worried voice, he said, "Dad, don't be angry. Getting angry is bad for your health." I turned to him and smiled. "Don't worry, Dad's fine. I just want you to remember, when someone wrongly accuses you, you should defend yourself. And when someone bullies you, you should fight back. You did the right thing. You hit him because he deserved it." Willow frowned again. Hearing my words, she did look genuinely distressed. She reached out to take David's hand, but David pulled away. She sighed, a trace of disappointment flickering in her eyes as she looked at me. She said softly, "Darling, I know you and David are upset, but Makoto and Kaito are our guests. Can't we at least wait until they leave before talking about this?" She added, "Children fight sometimes. Why make it so ugly for everyone?" I let out a cold laugh. Last night, I had already thought it all through. The nanny was right. Communication is important between husband and wife, but communication only works between people who can understand each other. Otherwise, it's just talking to a wall. Even if I could endure it, my son shouldn't have to. I gently coaxed David to go back to his room and fetch the things for his little market stall. Once the door to the children's room closed, I turned back to Willow and said, clearly and firmly, "Willow, let's get a divorce. I'm serious." Chapter 11. Willow stared at me in disbelief. She asked, "George, what do you mean by that?" She reached out to grab my arm, but I pulled back firmly. "Divorce," I said, my tone resolute. "Go be Kaito's mom if you want, but David doesn't need a mother who can't tell where her priorities lie." Seeing how serious I was, Willow's attitude softened immediately. Her tone followed suit, turning soft and pleading. She looked at me with an innocent expression, almost pouting. "Honey, why are you saying that? You can't just talk about divorce so easily." "Okay, I promise, after today, I'll keep my distance from Makoto." "All right," I replied flatly. "No." I shook off Willow's hand and turned to take David, who was carrying his little basket, by the hand. When David came out, Willow seemed to realize she should change the subject. She picked him up and said, "David, Mommy was wrong just now. As an apology, how about Mommy goes with you to the balcony to pick some cherry tomatoes?" "Okay." David still loved his mother deeply. Even though his cheeks puffed up in anger, he didn't refuse. Willow smiled at me while holding him, mouthing silently, "I'm sorry." I ignored her and turned to go back to the bedroom to change clothes. But the moment I stepped through the door, I heard David's voice burst into a cry from outside. "My cherry tomatoes." Chapter 12. Kaito had picked every single cherry tomato David had grown on the balcony. He even tore the plants out by the roots and stomped on them until they were a pulpy mess. Tomato juice splattered across the floor. Bright red stains everywhere. When David saw the ruined plants, he broke down completely. He shoved Kaito hard, sending him falling backward. As Kaito stumbled, he knocked over the potted plant on the balcony. The ceramic pot shattered into pieces, and one of the shards cut David's small hand. When I rushed over, David's face crumpled in pure misery. He threw himself into my arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Through hiccuping sobs, he pointed to the balcony and cried, "Daddy, Kaito ruined all my tomatoes." Wah! Those cherry tomatoes were the ones David had grown himself. He'd been preparing for the flea market for so long, watering them every day, caring for them so carefully. I patted his back gently to comfort him. But David was still heartbroken. He sobbed and said, "Daddy, I don't like Kaito. Make him leave. I don't want him coming to our house anymore." I nodded, then turned to look at Willow, only to realize she wasn't even looking at David. Her eyes were filled with tears, her gaze fixed on the shattered potted plant on the ground. Makoto, too, was staring sadly at the broken pot. He crouched down to pick up the pieces and said, "This was the plant I gave you when I confessed to you. I really didn't expect you'd still be keeping it after we broke up. But now, it's broken after all." "Willow, does this mean?" Willow reached out to stop him. She sniffled and said quietly, "Don't pick it up. Once something's broken, it's just broken." I couldn't help but laugh at the scene before me. After all this time, I finally learned where that potted plant had come from. Chapter 13. Over the years, we've moved 3 times. Every single time, Willow would take that potted plant with her. Once, during one of the moves, the moving company forgot to bring it along. When Willow found out, she went out in the pouring rain just to retrieve it. I once asked her who gave her that plant, for her to care about it so much. Willow answered casually. She said, "Just a friend, nothing special. I've just had it for so many years. It'd feel wrong to throw it away." Only today did I finally understand. It wasn't the plant she couldn't let go of. It was the person who gave it to her. Disgusting. Willow felt heartbroken over the broken pot, yet didn't even notice David's hand had been cut. Instead, she scolded him. "David, apologize to Uncle Ito and Kaito." David, still sniffling, tried to explain. "He was the one who broke my cherry tomatoes first. Those tomatoes were something Dad and I worked hard to grow." "Mom, I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I apologize?" Makoto tugged at Willow's sleeve and said, Forget it. Kaito and I shouldn't have come today." He made as if to leave with Kaito, but Willow stopped him. Her relentless tone cut right through David's crying. She said, "David, apologize." "I don't want to say it a second time." David froze. His tears caught in his throat. He tilted his head up, staring at Willow in disbelief. But faced with his mother, he nearly gave in, just as he was about to open his mouth to apologize. I reached out and stopped him. Willow glared at me, clearly annoyed. She snapped, "George, David's so disobedient now because you spoil him too much. You never discipline him. Whatever he says, you let it go. Whatever he does, you turn a blind eye. One day, he's going to make a huge mistake because of you. You'll be the one who ruins him." I sneered, then raised my hand and slapped Willow hard across the face. I said, "Yeah, I spoil him, so what? So if he doesn't do exactly what you want, he's disobedient. If he doesn't follow your orders, he's the one in the wrong. You think I'm controlling? Please, take a good look at your own obsession with controlling children." I continued. "As long as he doesn't cross any moral lines, I'll let David do what makes him happy. That way, he won't grow up timid and submissive, swallowing every injustice, or be manipulated later in life by people like you, people with zero logic, who use morality as a leash." Willow was stunned. She stood frozen in place. Makoto, seeing me raise my hand, immediately rushed to stand in front of her. He shouted, "George, how could you hit her?" He said, "So what if your son refuses to apologize?" I wasn't even going to hold it against a child. Unlike you, I'm not the kind of man who argues with women. Women are meant to be cherished, not struck. I let out a short, sharp laugh. Then I swung again. This time, my fist. The punch landed hard, sudden and heavy. Makoto's head snapped to the side from the force. He held his face, staring at me in disbelief. I laughed. You don't hold grudges. What right do you have to hold grudges? You keep opening and closing your mouth with "you men, like you're any better." I normally don't hit women or children, but too bad. Willow isn't a child, and you aren't a woman. You expect my son to apologize to you? What are you even? Do you deserve it? There's a limit to how low you can stoop. I've been holding back because I didn't want to hit anyone in front of David. But since you've got no shame and start reminiscing about the past in front of the child, I don't mind tearing off the mask. Let David see what disgusting things you two really are. Willow's face began to crack a little. She still cared about her image as a mother. She said, "That's enough, George. Don't talk nonsense in front of the child." Kaito ran around Makoto and came at me with a flurry of punches. I didn't hold back and shoved him over. Kaito fell into a mess of tomato juice. His clothes were stained red with tomato pulp, utterly humiliated. I looked down at him from above and said, completely out of his depth, just like his father, stupid and rotten. Kaito burst into a wail, louder than before. I turned and picked David up, walking out without looking back. David wiped his tears in my arms. His voice was still small and hurt. He said, "Dad, can we not have Mom anymore, please?" I looked at David and felt my heart lurch. How disappointed must a child be to choose to give up his own mother? I wiped the tear from the corner of his eye, patted his back, and said softly, "All right, we won't." Chapter 14. That day I still took David to the flea market. After I cleaned and treated the wounds on his hand, I drove him to the old house. Although the cherry tomatoes were gone, there were still plenty of unused things in the old house that we could bring to the flea market to sell. David was still a child after all. The moment he saw his friends at the flea market, he immediately perked up, full of energy again. Watching him shout and work alongside the other kids made me genuinely relieved. It turned out my son was far stronger than I'd imagined. At the flea market I ran into a former colleague. He told me he'd gotten divorced because his wife cheated, but he lost the court case and the child was awarded to the mother. Now he could only see the kid on weekends. I asked him why he lost the case. I said, "Sorry if this sounds blunt, I don't mean to offend." Don't laugh, but I'm facing the same problem you had. As a fellow father, he said he understood how I felt, and he was glad to help. He told me that after he caught his wife cheating, he was determined to divorce her and forgot to gather evidence. He went straight to court with a summons. In court, his wife stubbornly insisted she hadn't cheated. Plus, judges often consider that young children tend to be more dependent on their mothers. After weighing everything, the judge awarded the child to the mother. He sighed, then said slowly and with emphasis, "You must only fight battles you can win." Hearing him, I nodded earnestly, and I told myself the same. I must only fight battles I can win. Chapter 15. After the market ended, Willow showed up. She leaned against my car, holding a huge toy box in her arms, a full set of David's favorite Transformers. She was here to make peace. Willow asked, "Honey, are you still mad?" "David, look what Mommy brought you. Do you like it?" David's eyes lit up when he saw the toy, but the moment he heard Willow's voice, his smile faded. He said, "I don't want it." Then he took my hand. "Dad, let's go." Willow's attempt at warmth fell flat. When she saw I was about to get in the car and leave, she quickly grabbed my hand. Just like when we were dating, she shook my hand and acted cute. She said, "Honey, I really know I was wrong. Please forgive me just this once, okay?" With a pitiful look, she added, "To apologize. I spent the whole afternoon cooking everything you and David love to eat." Then, rising slightly on her toes, she said softly, "I also bought a few new outfits. Tonight I'll make it up to you properly. Don't be mad anymore, okay?" I subtly pulled my hand out of hers. I asked, "Where's Makoto?" Willow shook her head. "I told him to leave. You said you don't want me seeing him again, so I won't." Ever. With a serious face, she said, "I swear, there's really nothing between us. If I ever see him again, I'll get hit by a car." "All right." I immediately raised my hand and mocked, "That car's not driven by you, so maybe don't make oaths too casually." Seeing me joke, some of the tension eased from Willow's face. She giggled, then said playfully, "Honey, I really know I was wrong. Promise me you won't be mean to me anymore, okay?" I shrugged. Willow took it as agreement. She said, "And don't ever say things like divorce again, okay?" You have no idea how scared I was this afternoon. I stared at Willow's face, and all I could feel was irony. Time hadn't left a single mark on it, but the soul beneath that flawless shell was already broken beyond repair. Chapter 16. After getting in the car, I didn't let Willow sit in the passenger seat like she usually did. Instead, I had David sit beside me. Willow asked if I was still angry with her. I smiled and said no. Willow didn't ask again. In the car, I received a text message. A familiar profile picture popped up, the one with the potted plant. It read, George, did you notice the wrinkles on your wife's skirt? You're smart. You figured out my intention the first time we met. But so what? Willow and I know each other inside out. We even slept together before. If I decide to compete with you for her, do you think you could win? Then came a photo. It was of Willow's underwear. He wrote again, here, a little trophy for you. She said you're not good enough, only I can satisfy her. The last message was a laughing emoji, a smug, hand-over-mouth grin. Darling, why aren't you driving yet? What are you looking at? You seem so happy. Willow's voice suddenly came from the back seat. I looked up and met her gaze in the rearview mirror. Calmly, I said, nothing much. Just chatting with a friend. I saved the screen recording as evidence. After that, I sent the audio recording of what Willow had said to me at the market entrance to Makoto. My message read, what kind of pervert steals underwear? You're really pathetic, sitting there making up stories about your fantasies. Clown. After sending it, my phone started buzzing non-stop. Expressionless, I started the engine. Already losing your composure? With a psyche that fragile, you think you can fight me? Fucking idiot. Chapter 17. After dinner, I took a picture with Willow and David together. Willow was, of course, overjoyed. Once the photo was taken, I immediately posted it on my social feed. Caption, 3 meals a day, with you. Willow was the first to like it. She thought I had completely forgiven her, but she didn't know that when I went to the restroom halfway through dinner, I nearly threw up. During the meal, there were several moments when I almost couldn't stop myself from smashing the plate right into her face. If it weren't for my goal of securing full custody of David, I wouldn't want to spend another second sitting across from her. That night, while telling David his bedtime story, he looked at me disapprovingly. With a pure, curious expression, he asked, Dad, are you a simp? I burst out laughing. I ruffled his mischievous little head with my fingers. David scoffed and said, people online say simps never end well. Dad, can you please not be a simp? Looking at his earnest little face, my heart filled with warmth. This son of mine, totally worth it. Chapter 18. In the following days, Willow practically stayed home all the time. She started cooking, cleaning, and doing housework again. All those little family routines. It almost looked like she was really trying to be a good wife, a good mother. If I hadn't seen the chat records Makoto sent me, I might have actually believed she was turning over a new leaf. But on the third day, Makoto began forwarding me their messages. Willow had written, just wait a little longer. Once he stops being suspicious, I'll come find you. Then we'll go to that seaside hotel, the same one he and I went to for our honeymoon. I miss you. He seems to be in a better mood lately. He even asked me out to see a movie. Looks like we'll be able to meet again soon. Like I told you, George just cares about his pride. Deep down, he still loves me. When he proposed, he even handed me full control of the finances. If he divorces me, he'll lose both his wife and his money. Bringing up divorce is just his way of scaring me, trying to get my attention. I saw right through it long ago. But what disgusted me most was when Makoto suggested that Willow should divorce me. And Willow's reply was this, Makoto, stop dreaming. I can tell the difference between love and reality. There's no way I'd ever divorce George. Makoto asked her why. Honestly, I wanted to know too. She cheated on me. She could take care of a potted plant for almost a decade. And even after breaking up with Makoto, she still carried around his medicine. So why wouldn't she leave me? Willow replied, George is an orphan. His whole heart is tied to this family. Every cent he earns, he gives to me. If I divorce him, who's going to support me? You. Can you? Makoto smugly mocked me. In Willow's eyes, you're just an ATM. She loves me, but she won't even let me spend her money. I almost laughed out loud. How childish, divorced once already, and still so naive. After seeing Willow's answer, I finally understood everything. In her heart, I was nothing more than a free cash dispenser. Our marriage was a joke, absurd from start to finish. After reading Makoto's messages, I sent him an audio clip, the one where Willow stood in front of me, swearing loyalty, calling Makoto a broke loser, saying, who would ever want a useless man like him? There are many ways to break someone's pride, but nothing hits harder than a punch that lands on cotton. Soft, silent, and suffocating. Soon, Willow's phone rang. The ringtone was sharp, urgent. She picked it up and went out to the balcony. Through the glass door, I could see her, frantic, trying to explain, but this time, no matter how much she tried, the fire on the other end of that call just wouldn't die down. Chapter 19. Willow hurriedly slid open the glass door and rushed in, already putting on her shoes to head out. She said, honey, my best friend got into a car accident. She's in the hospital. I need to go see her right now. I asked calmly, oh, really? I didn't even bother to lift my eyelids. Willow was anxious and flustered. She held out her phone to show me her call log. The most recent call was marked Maria. Willow's best friend was indeed named Maria. She said, see, Do you believe me now? She's really in the hospital. I didn't expose her lie. I simply smiled lightly at her and said, I never said I didn't believe you. Go on. Don't keep your friend waiting. Before I could even finish speaking, Willow had already rushed out of the bedroom. As soon as she was outside, I heard her voice. She had dialed Maria's number, but what she said was, Makoto, I'm coming to you right now. After watching her leave, I went to David's room. I gently woke him up and took him to a friend's house. Seeing the 2 packed suitcases, David looked confused. He asked, Dad, where are we going? I patted his head gently. Before taking the final step, I wanted to be certain, so I asked him seriously, David, if your mom and I get divorced, who would you choose to stay with? Lately, Willow had been treating David very well. Their relationship as mother and son had mended quite a bit. David had started calling her mom again, so I was a little uneasy inside. But David looked up at me with a solemn expression and asked, She went to see Kaito's dad, didn't she? This time, I didn't hide it. No more lies. I nodded, watching him with aching tenderness. David, acting like a little grown-up, took my hand firmly and said, I'll stay with you, Dad. I smiled faintly and said, Good. Chapter 20. I called the lawyer I'd retained. I also brought along a few close friends. We drove to the building where Makoto lived. My friends had set up recording equipment in advance. Maybe even fate was on my side. As we went up the stairs, we happened to run into the delivery guy who was just heading to Makoto's apartment. One of my friends snatched the yellow paper bag from the delivery guy's hand and ripped it open. A few condoms tumbled out onto the floor. The delivery guy's ears flushed crimson when he saw what had fallen out. Before he could react, I told him the whole story. He was a man of principle. Indignant for me, he thumped his chest and promised, Don't worry, I'll get the door open for you. There are a few of my mates around too. Delivering all day gets boring. If you don't mind, I can call them over. Of course I didn't mind. I'd love nothing more than to strip the lot of them of their faces and grind them into the pavement. Sure enough, people love gossip. Before long the stairwell filled with a crowd of gawkers, all wearing looks of righteous anger. The delivery guy knocked on the door. A husky female voice came from inside. I'm coming. The door opened. Willow stood there with one shoulder exposed, wrapped only in a towel. Her neck was covered in love bites. It was obvious the foreplay had been thorough. The instant she saw me, she froze. She trembled and said, Honey, what are you doing here? Chapter 21. Willow was met not by words but by a sea of cameras, and by the heavy slap of my hand. I demanded, Since when did Maria move into Makoto's place? Willow, are you still shameless or what? Playing the dutiful wife and mother at home, then sneaking off to another man's apartment to have an affair. How low can you stoop? Do you even know what day it is? It's David's birthday today. You forgot your own son's birthday, but you didn't forget to travel 1,000 miles to indulge in affection. You're utterly disgraceful. Willow tried to grab me. Honey, let me explain, she began. But before she could finish, a male voice came from inside the apartment. Makoto said, Willow, why is one takeaway making so much noise? Finally getting a reaction. Now we'll have to start over again, he muttered. The next second I shoved Willow aside and, with the delivery guy at my side, barged in. With a bang, I kicked the bedroom door open. Makoto lay there, clean and stunned on the bed, staring at me in disbelief. I stormed forward and landed a punch square on his face. The pain sparked his instinct to fight back. He swung to retaliate, but in the instant that followed, several delivery guys surged in and held him down, urging, Calm down, let's talk. In the chaos I kept throwing punches while a few of my friends added kicks. Willow reached to grab my arm to stop me, but I shoved her away. She fell. When she scrambled up, the towel had slipped off. One of my friends kept filming the whole scene. Neighbors who heard the commotion in the stairwell poured out to gawk. There was Willow, naked, forced to protect the last scrap of dignity she had left, crouched in the corner, hugging her head, refusing to move despite people pulling at her. Soon I dragged Makoto out of the bedroom too. There they were together, both humiliated, crouched in the corner, clutching their heads like defeated dogs. Chapter 22. Willow's parents arrived. The moment her father saw her like that, he nearly lost his breath. Her mother, a divorce lawyer, understood better than anyone what the outcome would be. Tears streamed down her face as she struck and scolded Willow. Willow, how could you be so foolish? Willow couldn't bear to look at them. She kept her head down, silent. In the end, everything wound up at the police station. There, Willow knelt on the floor, sobbing hysterically, begging for my forgiveness. She tried to use David as a shield, pleading that he couldn't live without his mother. I took out my phone. I played her a recording. David, if Mom and Dad get divorced, who would you choose? She went to see Kaito's dad, didn't she? I'll stay with Dad. Willow lifted her tear-streaked face in disbelief. She stammered, That's impossible. David forgave me yesterday. I sneered. Maybe he did. Maybe David was willing to forgive you, but what did you do next? Then I looked at her and said, Willow, there's one question I've wanted to ask you for a long time. Her eyes were red as she met mine. I said quietly, if someday David meets someone just like you, what would you do? That sentence broke her completely. Her head dropped in shame. Her voice trembled as she whispered, fine. I agree to the divorce. Chapter 23. The day I reclaimed my assets and received the divorce certificate. David, like a little adult, smiled at me and said, Dad, I love you. Willow fidgeted with her hands, nervous, trying to say something to David, but just as she opened her mouth, David and I turned away. Walking down the steps, Willow finally gathered the courage to call out, David, can you call me Mom one more time? David stopped, turned back to look at her, and said, Miss Lou, Kaito is your son. The words hit Willow so hard she almost lost her balance. Neither David nor I went to help her. We descended the steps quickly, got in the car, and drove away, without ever looking back. Chapter 24. After finalizing the divorce with Willow, I never saw her again. When I dropped David off at kindergarten, his teacher mentioned that Kaito had been expelled. The incident that day had caused such an uproar that word spread quickly across the entire city of C. It wasn't a big city, news traveled fast. Before long, every parent in the school committee knew what had happened. No one wanted their children to study alongside someone like Kaito. In the end, the kindergarten decided to ask him to leave. The teacher also told me that on the day Kaito was expelled, both of his biological parents came to the school. They even brought a DNA test report, proving that the boy wasn't Makoto's child at all. They forcibly took Kaito away and put him into their car. Makoto went berserk, chasing after them like a madman, but after only a few steps, a motorcycle came speeding down the road and hit him square on. He didn't die, but he was hospitalized. Since he had dashed into the street himself, the motorcyclist wasn't held responsible beyond basic humanitarian compensation for medical costs. Most of the follow-up expenses, however, fell on Makoto. When his savings ran out, he sold his house to pay for treatment. When the house money was gone, he started a fundraising campaign online, but the moment people saw his name, no one wanted to donate. Instead, they reported him for fraud. Within days, his fundraiser was forcibly shut down. Eventually, broke and unable to pay his bills, the hospital discharged him. He tried reaching out to Willow and some old friends for help, but they all turned him away. Some even mocked him, posting screenshots of his begging messages online, making jokes in their social feeds. All this was sent to me by mutual acquaintances who couldn't resist gossip. After that, I don't know what became of him. No one does. Chapter 25. The next time I heard news about Willow, it was about her death. The incident that night, when she was caught cheating, had completely destroyed her. After that day, she began to fear any kind of contact with men. She tried dating again, but the moment anyone found out who she was, they'd spill their coffee and walk away. She'd lived on credit for years, spending recklessly, and after our divorce, with no man left to bail her out, her debts grew larger and larger. Some creditors, in order to pressure her into paying, printed the photos from that night, the ones showing her humiliated and exposed, and pasted them all over her apartment door. Soon, Willow became terrified of being seen. If someone so much as glanced her way on the street, she'd feel like they were whispering about her. Eventually, she stopped going out altogether. She left all her messes for her parents to handle. During the divorce, because she had embezzled and squandered too much of our family's money, and with her infidelity proven, I was awarded nearly all of the savings and property. Willow was left with nothing but debt. Her life had already fallen apart, but instead of trying to rebuild, she gave up completely, locking herself inside, drinking every day, wasting away. Even her parents grew tired of her self-destruction, so when she finally fell from her apartment building, it wasn't her parents who found her first, it was a sanitation worker. The worker cursed under his breath, calling it bad luck. When I heard the news, I was with David, watering the cherry tomatoes. A new flea market event was coming up. This time, David wanted to sell cherry tomatoes again. I looked at the small plants, now blooming, and drifted into thought. David tugged gently on my sleeve. Dad, what are you thinking about? He asked. I snapped out of it, looked down at him, and patted his little head. I was just thinking, I said. How amazing my son is.